Today we're covering property taxes in Florida, specifically how to calculate them when there's homestead involved. Now, homestead is something that is changing, so we'll post new videos soon as there are new updates to the homestead law. But as the real estate exam is testing now, this is the way you're going to want to know and understand how to calculate the homestead taxes, the taxes due. And ultimately, a good news for the exam is with the law changing, it's potentially going to make it easier on the exam because I think they're going to give you more information with less to figure out on your own. We'll see how that plays out as these laws do evolve. If we even have property taxes in the future, who could believe such a world? But, you know, it's something that they're discussing. For now, though, passing your exam, you do need to know the property taxes. So in order to calculate the homestead property taxes, you're going to need a few things from the question. Now, on your exam, you'll be given information such as property value. You should be able to find the property value, more specifically, the assessed value. So the assessed value for property tax purposes is going to be given to you in the question. And let's say in this case we'll say $250,000. So that would be given in the question. It would also give you millage rates for the city, the county, and the school board. And so let's say we've got 7.1 and 5.2 and 6.3 as the millage rates. It would also be important to pull out if they're legally blind, if they're a widow, a surviving spouse, if they're a veteran who has some level of disability. But to keep things simple, with the most basic version of this type of question, the key details we need are right here: the assessed value, the millage rate, and in this case, we are going to solve this with a homestead. So that detail there that the property is homesteaded. Now, when it comes to solving this, I like to lay this out on a chart. And this is going to help out a lot when it comes to solving this on your exam when you have a predictable method for solving this again and again and again. And that method is going to be a T-chart where we have the city and the county and the school board. Now, ultimately, when it comes to solving this, we're going to take the assessed value. We're going to subtract out any exemptions. We're going to keep it super basic in this example. That's going to give us what's taxable. And then we're going to multiply that by the mills. And that's going to give us the taxes due. So super simple, especially when you could lay out this much, because now we already know we're subtracting here, we're multiplying here, and then the one final step at the end, because we're just coming up with one number, is adding together these two taxes. Or three taxes, I should say. Now, there's only two sides of this board here. The ultimate divider is right here down the middle. And what we're doing here is we're combining the city and the county taxes. And the reason why we're able to combine together the city and the county taxes is because these have the same exemption amount. Anytime your property is over $75,000, your homestead exemption for the city and county taxes, the base exemption, is $50,000. And so we could actually solve these together instead of having to do the city and the county separately. But the reason why the school board must be done on its own and separately is because the school board taxes are based upon a lower amount of exemption. And those amounts of exemption, I'm going to put it in green of what you need to remember and bring to the table for this, at least if they don't give it to you on the exam, which they typically don't, but maybe, who knows, with all these exam law updates, they might, again, maybe make it easier on you. But that's what you need to bring to the table there, that $50,000 and that $25,000. Now, going back to our exam question, it did tell us that the property assessed value is $250,000, so we'll go ahead and plug that in on both sides of our chart here. And now when we calculate this out to see, we'll start with the city and county side. It's going to be $200,000 taxable. If we compare that now to the school board side, it's going to be $225,000 taxable. That's the reason why we have to calculate the school board separately, because both the city and the county qualify for a $50,000 exemption. The exemption amount for school board is lower. It's only a $25,000 base exemption, so that way when this additional exemption of another $25,000 was passed legally, it wasn't taking money away from schools. So therefore, you only get a $25,000 exemption on the school board, so you only subtract $25,000 there. Now, the next step, we do have to combine together this 7.1 and this 5.2. And we could do that with our handy-dandy calculator. You might say, John, people love to comment this. Go ahead and leave a comment if you think this. John, you should be able to do this math. You're right. And I probably could if I sat down and my life depended on it. But the good news is you get to use a calculator on your exam. Just like this calculator we've got here. We've got Tampa School of Real Estate calculators featuring with and without beep, so it can be exam compliant. But when you punch those into your calculator and double check your math, you should come up with 12.3. 12.3 mils for the city and the county, and then we've got 6.3 for the school board. Now, one important thing that you need to know for mils is mils are 1/10 of a cent, or 1/10 of a percent. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means 3 decimal places, or 3 little swoopy lines, as I like to call them there. And so that 12.3, when we're going to put that in our calculator, it's actually going to be 0.0123, because we're moving that 1, 2, and 3 decimal places over to the left. Or vice versa, if we wanted to convert this in our calculator of 0.0123 into actual mils. So we're going to go over here, and that's how we're going to multiply this, 0.0123. That number could not be easier to remember. And so when we take $200,000, put that in our Tampa School of Real Estate calculator there, $200,000 times 0.0123, it's going to give us $2,460 in taxes due. Now, that is just for the city and county portions. We still need to calculate the school board portion of this year. And so in order to do that, we're going to do the same type of math, but not based on 12.3 mils. We're going to do that based on the 6.3 mils for the school board. So not only is there a different exemption amount, typically all 3 of these tax districts will have a slightly different number. They could be the same. They could make the exam question like that. I've never seen it that way, but in theory, yes, it could. But expect these numbers to be different, or if they're not, it might just say they're all 5.2. But in this case, we've got 6.3 for the school board. So 6.3, but 1, 2, and 3 decimal places. Boom, boom, 0, 0. 0.0063. That's how we're going to put that in our calculator, 0.0063. So notice it's not about how many zeros you add. Here we added 2. Here we only added 1. It's not about the number of zeros. It's about the number of decimal places. So 3 decimal places always when it comes to mils, because it's 1/10 of a penny. A penny would be 2 decimal places. 1/10 of a penny, aka a mil, 3 decimal places. So now, final step on this side for the school board, $225,000. You got to remember we've got that different exemption amount here, so make sure you punch that in, not the $200,000 that we did over here. So $225,000, we've got that in our calculator, times 0.0063, and that is going to give us $1,417.50. And finally, the final step here to get the final answer, we're going to add these two together. 2,460 plus 1,417.50, and that's going to give us $3,877.50. So that is calculating the taxes due. The city, the county, the school board, all three of them, you're just doing it faster because you're combining these two. Instead of having to do this math 3 times, all you did here was add together these millage rates, and you are allowed to do that because it has the same exemption amount. If this wasn't a homesteaded property, we could have added all 3 of these together and just did one calculation, but that's not quite as simple as it's going to be on your exam. Most likely not. If it is a much simpler calculation. But usually the math questions have a certain degree of difficulty. Really, this was one of the most predictable exam questions until the Homestead laws started to change a little bit. One of the biggest differences is the increase in the additional exemption. So if this were a widow, if this person were blind, if this were a non-veteran who's totally and permanently disabled, any one of those 3 categories is going to qualify on both sides here. So even for the school board, an additional $5,000 in exemption. So that would have made this $55,000, and that would have made this $30,000 if this were a widow or a blind person, legally blind, or a non-veteran who's totally and permanently disabled, or a veteran who's at least 10% disabled. That would qualify for those additional $5,000 exemptions. So just don't forget about that in case the exam question mentions a widow, somebody legally blind, somebody who is, again, non-veteran, totally permanently disabled, or a veteran who is at least 10% disabled from a service-connected misfortune. So what do you say we do one more of these before we wrap up for today? We're going to do this again, but we're going to have an entirely different scenario here. So we're going to do the same exact type of math, but different numbers entirely. Let's pick a little bit bigger house. Let's pick a house that would be $1 million. Maybe you want to own $1 million house one day. And chances are, if it's assessed for $1 million, you might have paid more than $1 million for it. Most of the time, market value tends to be a little bit higher than the assessed value. And in this case here, let's say that we've got for our mills, let's say the city mills are 8.2, and the county, we'll put them at 7.1. And the school, we'll say 6.4. And we're going to say that this property is, again, homesteaded. So we have $1 million property assessed for $1 million, city of 8.2, county of 7.1, school of 6.4. Now, before we go on to the next page, we already know these two, we're going to combine them. So we're going to pull out our handy dandy calculator, punch in 8.2 plus 7.1, and that's going to give us 15.3 mils. And the 6.4, we'll just leave it exactly as that, because on the next screen, we're going to solve this. And always trying to do this the same way. City and county on one side, school taxes on the other. And we're going to be doing assessed minus exemptions gives us our taxable times the mills gives us our taxes due. According to our question, our assessed value was $1 million. The exemption amount, we need to remember that, still only $50,000 and $25,000. Even though this is $1 million property, it could be a $100,000 property or a $1 million property. As long as it's above $75,000, you max out the exemption amount there. So over here, we're going to have $950,000 taxable. And over here, we're going to have $975,000 taxable. And the next step is we're going to multiply that by the millage rate. And we've got our millage rate from the past screen here. 8.2 for the city, 7.1 for the county, as stated in the question. Together, those equal out to 15.3. But again, we can't put in 15.3 right there. What we've got to do is go 1, 2, and 3 decimal places over. So that's going to become 0.0153. So times 0.0153. And when we put that in our calculator of $950,000 times 0.0153, we're going to get $14,535. And that's just for the city and county. Let's head over to the school board side and calculate that one. Now, according to our question, 6.4 mils for the school board. But again, we have to go 1, 2, and 3 decimal places over, so that's going to be 0.0064, how we put in our calculator. And remember, we only get the $25,000 exemption here, so it's $975,000 that we're multiplying by the 0.0064. So in our calculator, $975,000 times 0.0064, our 6.4 mils as a decimal, and that gives us now another $6,240. Looks like our taxes are going to be above $20,000. Let's add them together, plus 14,535, and that's going to give us $20,775 in the annual property tax bill, even though that property is homesteaded. So yes, even though this property is homesteaded, it's still $20,000 tax bill, but that is a $1 million property. Same exact exemption amount as we did previously for the $250,000 property. So same amount of savings, but at the end of the day, the $250,000 property is only paying $3,800, just under $4,000, $3,877, whereas the $1 million property with a slightly higher tax rate. So 8.2 we had over here, only 7.1 and 5.2. So yes, the tax rates did get a little bit higher for this question as well. And that was enough to put it over $20,000 for that $1 million property with the homestead property tax calculation. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to see more exam prep tips, make sure to follow and subscribe for more. If you need an exact strategy of how to pass your real estate exam, passfirsttry.com is what we created to lay out that exact strategy that we've used based on our years of experience and thousands of students that we've helped advance their real estate careers since 2007. Again, that link is passfirsttry.com. This is our complete suite of exam prep tools. This is going to include the secrets of the exam course, of tips and strategies to pass your exam. It's going to include the audio review, which is our most condensed version of the course in only 5 hours. So you have just the key details that you want to memorize. You have lots of opportunity to get repetition because it's so condensed. You have the question simulator to test your knowledge and the exam cram videos with the workbook that goes along with them that you could follow along in, write in, highlight in, make copies of. We give you a digital copy online so you could print out, for example, the math questions. If you want to do those math questions again and again and again, you could print out just those math pages of the workbook online and then redo those same questions. Because for any of the math questions, the repetition is the key. Repetition is the key. So passfirsttry.com, and 24/7 if you have any questions about passing your real estate exam, reach out to us, 813-333-2676. Again, that's 813-333-2676. We can help you pass your real estate exam no matter where you are. We've had students from over 40 countries worldwide go through the Tampa School of Real Estate and its related programs to advance their real estate career. Become part of the Tampa School of Real Estate Alumni Network today. Even if you've started your classes with another real estate school, you could still become part of the Tampa School of Real Estate. Use our exam prep tools. If you have a certificate of completion already, that is good for 2 years, but don't let that exam stand in your way of your real estate career. So passfirsttry.com, 813-333-2676. We can help you with all stages of your real estate career, even beyond passing your exam. So that's a great number to save in your phone for TSRE. We have all kinds of programs to get you started, as well as take your real estate career to levels you never even thought possible. So reach out to us 24/7, 813-333-2676, or view the full strategy online at passfirsttry.com. Get enrolled in those exam prep tools, get your exam passed, and if there's anything that we can do to help you in this process, reach out to us again at 813-333-2676. It's about all the time that we've got for today. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be back on Friday for State of Real Estate. The most powerful tool to study for your real estate exam is the Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate. We've used our years of experience in preparing students for the Florida real estate exam to bring you the most powerful exam study tool available. In the Question Simulator, you'll be able to go directly to a particular unit so you can focus on the sections where you need the most practice. We have also included the percentages of each unit so you know which units are the most important for your real estate exam. Every question will immediately give you detailed feedback, which is almost always more important than the question or the answer themselves. After completing all the questions in a particular unit, you can go through question by question and review any that you've gotten wrong. You could also print out a report at the end of each quiz. The Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate is 100% mobile compatible, so you can practice with test questions anywhere you have your phone with you. Enroll now at questionsimulator.com and get ready to pass your exam. Are you studying for your Florida real estate exam? If you are, you need to check out our Pass First Try strategy. You're going to love this. It's 4 steps that we break down the process to study for your Florida real estate exam. So you're set up to pass your Florida real estate exam because that's what you're studying for, right? To pass your exam. It's 4 steps. Number 1, you learn the information. You've got to learn this to be able to
pass the exam, but it doesn't stop at learning. Step 2, you've got to reinforce the basic, simple, key concepts. As you learn this information, keep reviewing the simple things. You don't need to know everything, but you got to review these basic key concepts. Step 3, you've got to test your knowledge. The exam's going to test your knowledge, so if you don't test your knowledge in advance, you won't find out if you know what you think you know until you take the exam. And then step 4 is be confident and prepared, because even if you know this material, you need to be confident that you know the material. Check out the full strategy at passfirsttry.com. That's passfirsttry.com. Have you been thinking about getting your Florida real estate license? Look, the process is probably easier than you think. We break it down step by step, how much it's going to cost, what it is that you need to do to get your Florida real estate license. Find out all of that and more at licensefl.com. Again, that's licensefl.com.